When people joke about Supergirl's motto being "look out" instead of "look up," it's usually because of her messy introduction in James Gunn's new DC universe. The joke works perfectly since in Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, Kara Zor-El actually spends part of her time drunk on a red sun planet, and it looks like Gunn is leaning into that idea, making her a hero who isn't polished or perfect, but someone raw, complicated, and even self-destructive at times. That may sound unusual for a superhero story, but it's exactly what makes this version of Supergirl so interesting, and why so many fans are buzzing with excitement about the upcoming Supergirl movie. Now, the timing of all this is pretty wild. The 2025 San Diego Comic-Con just wrapped up, and it turned out to be a massive event for DC fans. There were all kinds of announcements, sneak peeks, and heartfelt moments that reminded everyone how much comics still mean to the people who make them. Out of everything that happened, though, one moment stood out as the real highlight: James Gunn's surprise appearance at DC's Jim Lee and Friends panel. It was the kind of moment fans dream about, where you could feel the energy in the room instantly shift. Gunn walked in, and suddenly all eyes were on him. What made this particular appearance special wasn't just the surprise factor, it was how openly Gunn spoke about his admiration for Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. That comic, written by Tom King and illustrated by Bilquis Evely with colors by Matt Lopez, has quickly become one of the most respected Supergirl stories ever told. For many fans, it even redefined who Kara Zor-El is. So, when Gunn showed up and praised the book so openly, it wasn't just fan service, it was reassurance that his upcoming Supergirl movie is in the hands of someone who truly respects the source material. At the panel, Gunn didn't waste any time getting to the point. He looked right at the creative team and said he makes movies like Superman and the upcoming Supergirl because of the respect he has for the work people like King, Evely, and Lopez create. He even admitted that he had just been staring at the art before the panel and that it genuinely touched him. Gunn described their work as so beautiful that it moved him deeply. That's not something you hear from every director, because not everyone speaks with that kind of honesty, but with Gunn, it felt completely real. And that's what makes his approach so unique. He's not just adapting comics, he's clearly inspired by them on a personal level. Gunn even said he couldn't have made Superman without being influenced by the artistry and storytelling from comics like Woman of Tomorrow. Hearing that kind of passion makes it easier to understand why his projects, whether it's Guardians of the Galaxy, The Suicide Squad, or Peacemaker, often stand out from the crowd. He approaches these stories with love, not just as content to churn out for profit. Now, I'll admit, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow had the same effect on me that it clearly had on Gunn. Before I read it, Supergirl always felt to me like Superman's younger cousin, a side character whose biggest trait was being connected to Clark Kent. But Tom King's story completely changed that perception. Suddenly, Kara wasn't just the cousin, she was layered, flawed, scarred, and fighting to find her own place in the universe. It was a story about trauma, resilience, and moral choices, wrapped inside this space western adventure. Honestly, it made me fall in love with her character in a way I never had before. That's why I practically cheered when I first heard Gunn was using Woman of Tomorrow as the inspiration for his 2026 Supergirl film. Because even though adaptations never match the comics beat for beat, just knowing the heart of that story will influence the movie is enough to give me high hopes. And now that we've seen Kara Zor-El's first appearance in the DCU, I feel even more confident. For anyone who hasn't caught it yet, Supergirl actually made her debut in the final moments of Superman. It wasn't long, maybe 30 seconds, but it was enough to spark all kinds of reactions from fans. Milly Alcock, who's playing Kara, showed us a version of Supergirl who's obstinate, rebellious, and, let's be honest, a complete hot mess. That's exactly the version King wrote, and it's honestly a breath of fresh air. Because instead of being another squeaky clean hero like her cousin, Kara is introduced as someone struggling, messy, and deeply human despite her alien powers. One of the cleverest touches in that cameo was the nod to her drinking on a red sun planet. Superman himself mentions it, explaining that Kara had gone there because under a yellow sun, Kryptonians can't get drunk. That detail isn't random. It's pulled straight out of Woman of Tomorrow, where Kara begins the story in a bar on a red sun world, trying to numb her pain. Including that little beat in Superman wasn't just a funny throwaway, it was a deliberate way of telling fans, this is the Supergirl you're getting, raw, vulnerable, and carrying a lot of baggage. It's also worth noting that this kind of portrayal sets her apart from Superman in a big way. Clark Kent has always been portrayed as steady, confident, and morally centered. Kara, by contrast, is being introduced as someone still figuring things out. She struggles with survivor's guilt, a lack of direction, and unhealthy coping mechanisms. That contrast makes her story feel necessary rather than redundant. Instead of being Superman but female, she becomes her own character with her own unique challenges. Of course, not everything in the movie will be a direct copy of Tom King's comic, and Gunn has already signaled that with subtle changes. For example, in the comic, Krypto plays a huge role in motivating Kara to go on her journey. But in the DCU, Krypto is shown with Superman while Kara is off on her Red Sun drinking escapades. That small change already suggests Gunn won't be following the comic beat for beat. Instead, he's likely to borrow key themes, ideas, and moments, but remix them into a new story that fits the larger DCU. Honestly, that's probably the smarter move, because it allows both the comic and the movie to shine on their own. Now, I know some fans always want one-to-one adaptations, but there's a good argument for this approach. By not being tied down to every single plot point, Gunn can surprise us while still honoring the heart of what made Woman of Tomorrow so powerful. It's the same strategy he used with Guardians of the Galaxy. He didn't adapt a single comic arc directly, but he pulled inspiration from multiple places to create something that felt true to the spirit of the characters. If he does the same with Supergirl, we could end up with a film that stands as both a tribute to the comics and a bold new direction for Kara Zor-El. Another thing worth appreciating is how Gunn has been careful to frame Supergirl's introduction as more than just a joke about her being drunk. Sure, it was funny to see her staggering, but the scene also carried weight. It was her first step into a shared universe where she will have to find her identity. It sets up a character arc that's messy but deeply relatable. Because who hasn't felt lost or coped in unhealthy ways at some point? By showing us a Kara who's flawed from the start, Gunn is laying the groundwork for a redemption story that could become one of the most compelling arcs in the DCU. DC has struggled with consistency, but fans now want authentic, emotionally rich stories. Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow delivers exactly that, making it the perfect inspiration for James Gunn's 2026 Supergirl movie. With Milly Alcock embodying a messy yet relatable Kara Zor-El and Gunn's genuine passion for Tom King's acclaimed comic, the film has a strong foundation. Even though details will differ, the heart of Kara's search for purpose remains central. Gunn's heartfelt admiration promises a version of Supergirl who feels flawed, human, and unforgettable, elevating her beyond being just Superman's cousin and finally making her a hero in her own right. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.